Hey, Bill.
Good morning.
Good morning. So lovely to see you.
Yeah, likewise, Nadine. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, so lovely. This is the last one, people. Last one out of lockdown, last one out of safe at home. And, I'm so happy to have Bill here with me. We were just talking like we cannot remember how we met.
No, I think I love that. We just faded into friendship. There wasn't a moment where it went bang.
Yeah.
Don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I got no idea. Like we've been sitting on panels and talking about diversity and inclusion, and we've been like just forming this kind of conversational relationship, I think.
Oh, yeah.
One
Yeah,
that
perhaps somebody can tell us where we met. That would be
yeah,
really funny.
exactly. But I kind of I've always respected you and loved your kind of the voice that you bring into spaces. Um
Likewise.
Yeah, so it's been really such a treasure for me to get to know you, and I really want to continue to get to know you because I feel that there's a lot more to learn on a daily basis, especially as we've got all this time now to kind of get to learn to know people really. And actually, people say that Zoom isn't very intimate or these platforms aren't very intimate, but I do find we are closer together. So we have to be more intimate. It's quite interesting, isn't it? But
Yeah.
anyway, sorry. But anyway, good morning. It's 9:01 and I am Nadine Benjamin. I am a certified high performance coach and I'm an NLP mind coach. NLP means neuro, the brain, linguistic, how we speak to the brain, and programming is the patterns or the paradigms that we set up in our brains that are sometimes working for us and sometimes not working for us. So I love to turn those limited beliefs into limitless beliefs. And I also love connecting, which is this space here, championing and celebrating others. And today, yes, I am celebrating, I am championing, and I am connecting with you, Bill Banks Jones. He studied philosophy at the University of St Andrews. He joined the ITV Regional Theatre Young Directors Scheme before working for the English National Opera, the National Theatre, the Royal Shakespeare Company, the Royal Opera, and the Salzburg Festivals. He is founder, artistic director of Tête, and has directed almost all its own productions since The Flying Fox in 1998. Productions include The Canticles in Westminster Abbey, Streetwise Opera's first show co-produced with Tête, and 5 different homeless shelters. A Nitro at the Opera for ROH, BBC4, translated and directed both Pagliacci and Hansel Gretel for Scottish Opera. All future plans to direct any shows now cancelled because of the pandemic. Bill is chair of the Opera Music Theatre Forum, the UK network of opera companies, a director of Freelancers Make Theatre Work, a convener of We Shall Not Be Removed, and was awarded the BEM in the Queen's Birthday Honours 2020 for services to opera and diversity. What a wonderful, wonderful biog and a kind of legacy of work that Bill has done. I have just seen that he is out of the chat. Morning, Marjorie. So lovely to see you. And I'm looking forward to hearing Bill's thing. I'll just ask him. Here he is. He's back. He's back.
I am, and your sound has gone a bit weird, Nadine, but let's soldier on, I guess.
Can you hear me, or do you want me to take my headphones out?
Oh, okay. Dear.
If I take my headphones out, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're still like the soup dragon.
Oh, I can't hear you now at all.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you now.
No.
Oh. Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Just about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Yes, that's it. Right, that's brilliant. Well done. Yay!
Well, that was it, but let's soldier on. You're back to the soup dragon, but never mind. Let's do our best.
Okay, so Marjorie's saying, good morning, Nadine and Bill. Looking forward to hearing Bill's wisdom. He's so creative. I agree. Bill is so creative. So, Bill, where did your first love of theatre come from?
Oh, well, that's a really lovely question. When you told me you were going to ask that, I thought very hard, and I remembered way back in a past life, I was this English upstart, very young, at a Scottish conference on Scottish theatre. And they were kind of tearing into a lot of stuff. And, you know, I am lucky. I had a privileged background. And part of that was I went to a lovely nursery school where I was 3, and it was called Auntie Marjorie's. And I was a fairy in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. And I just loved it. And it nobody can take that away from me, and it was just gorgeous. And the other half, I think, the thing that's still absolutely seared in my memory is a series of pantomimes in Richmond Theatre with Arthur Askey as the dame and Anna Eagle as the good fairy. And I'll never forget those. I think they're very cherished memories, and I think we all have those, and the reason we're in the business is because we want to make more for ourselves and other people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that it was Auntie Marjorie's nursery that you were on, and the first person that says hello is Marjorie Ubery.
Well, there's a cherished memory or two.
Yeah, exactly. It's so wonderful. So do you feel that that early start was instrumental? That early start in, you know, that relationship with theatre was fundamental on how you made your choices growing up as an artist?
Oh, that's an interesting question, Nadine. I really devoured and still do the world. My mum, particularly, but my family were very bookish, so we'd read everything, and I knew everything. I was quite unwell as a kid, so couldn't be sporty, but I could read every book in the world, and I was in lots of shows and went to many more. I was very musical as well, so I played the piano, but in quite a weird way. So of course as usual, I would never conform. So by about 13, I'd learned pretty much all of Messiaen's piano works, but I couldn't do I couldn't do grade 5 theory or play a normal diatonic scale that easily without thinking about it. The music got a bit left behind when I went to university because it was very poor at university in comparison to my school, which was amazing with orchestras and practice rooms and brilliant teachers and things. But the theatre was good. So that's what I did there for a long time, and until I was, you know, way into my 20s, nearly 30 actually. I was the theatre director, just doing theatre. The music got left behind and then picked up again, really. At the end of this thing called the Regional Theatre Young Directors Scheme, where I worked at Farnham and Leatherhead, had a fantastic time, directed lots of plays. I got kind of headhunted by David Pountney to go and work in English National Opera when it was at the crest of its wave. And it was, for a while, a thrilling time. It was really exciting.
Yes. So, in terms of that, then, you know, you said that you you never conform. I mean, you never conform, and I do love that about you. I have to say, Bill, you're a bit of a rebel, you know, in the theatre business. But is that why you kind of brought into voice the Tête Festival and Company?
Yes, in a nutshell, it began because the career ladder I'd started on at ENO was kind of kicked away. So when I first worked there, I was assisting, learning how to do the job off a lot of directors who themselves had been assistants. That was the pathway. So it was Graham Vick, David Pountney, David Alden, Richard Jones, Stephen Pimlock, Keith Warner. And quite interestingly, they're still really the directors people go back to. Opera changed tack and it started bringing in you know, your Ken Russell or whoever. So they would hire somebody not because they knew how to do the job so much as because they were really in another field, and sometimes they were brilliant, sometimes they were hopeless. But what I saw was this pathway that I'd started on that had deviated and ended up in a rather frustrating situation where the more senior you became as a staff director at ENO, the more likely you'd be to be attached to directors who didn't know what they were doing because they needed somebody experienced to get them through the job. So it was a little bit of a dark time, really. And it was a dark time for the company as well, to some degree, because it went from such confidence to a little bit lost its way. So it was time to do something else. And the story of how that all happened was quite interesting. It was obviously really latent in me that I wanted to, you know, make a new part.
Oh, we've lost him again. He should come back into the. Yeah, he's back in the stream. Yeah, you're back already. That's good. You were getting the hang of this.
I have a thing I have to click, I think, to reappear, which is a bit weird. Anyway, I had left and I was doing bits and bobs, and I remember I was doing a set of scenes at the Royal College of Music, including Fledermaus, when I had dinner with Emma Jenkins, who some people will know, who's now does a lot of work as a librettist. She was a fellow staff director at ENO. And I said, how are you? What are you doing? And she said, I am really excited because I'm going to do a show with a couple of live dolphins in it in this theatre. And I went, whoa, I want some of that. So what's going on? You know, tell me the story. And she said, well, there's this dude, Tom Morris, who's runs Battersea Arts Centre, who's set
I love Tom. He's amazing. I love Tom.
Yeah, well, he gave us so much then. And so I wrote, it was the days of writing letters. I wrote to Tom and said, I'd love to come and talk to you about doing something. And unprecedentedly, I got a phone call saying, can you come and see me tomorrow morning, the day after I sent the letter? So I went to see him at 9 o'clock. And he said, OK, what do you want to do? And I hadn't a clue. And then I just improvised and I said, I want to do Fledermaus in a very traditional production, in a very small studio, but take the chairs away in the interval so that Prince Orlovsky's party is actually a party. And wonderful. That was Tête first show. And it was such a kind of explosion of happiness and joy. And we just had a brilliant, brilliant time. And people were dancing down the street at the end. You could see, you know, rather long-running marriages being rekindled. It was really, really magic. People will never forget it. And it was mad as well. There was about 40 people to perform in a 60-seat studio. It was double cast. Out of that was 98 that happened. And we went with Orlando Joplin, the music director I started it with. We went, well, what is the whole thing was about pulling surprises. It was absolutely, it swam against its own tide because it began so traditionally. When you took the chairs away and you came back in, you were announced by a Toastmaster. It was like, whoa. So the next year, we did a production of new works because we thought that's the next surprise we can do. And we did a whole load of short new operas, which is a formula Tête has repeated again and again. And we would have done this May with the Royal College of Music. And I guess in all this, lots and lots of things that I felt I couldn't do at ENO. And they were partly to do with bringing the theatre background to opera, partly to do with the complete lack of fringe that there was at all at that point. And that's why they started buying in Ken Russells to direct shows, because they weren't farming their own artists, the opera sector. It lost confidence. It wasn't proud of itself. So it had to, and this is still going on, it had to feed off others. I also had this experience where wonderful composers were having their first go on a stage in the Colosseum. And they weren't really supported because the company only did a new opera once every 1 or 2 years. So it didn't have the development process I had been doing for years and years with theatre writers. So they didn't know how to do that. And in a way, it was rather unkind because they just wouldn't edit. They wouldn't be blunt with composers. They wouldn't say, we've got to cut this bit and then it'll be better. They just do, kind of interminable disaster because it was there. There was also another thing, actually, when you talk of diversity, that was something that happened right from the beginning of Tête. We did something which I think you have to do more than this now, but at the beginning, we just wanted to put on stage the world that we wanted to see and the people we wanted to see in the audience. So we always, from the very first show, had a lovely mixture of people, and that has just carried on coming back to me over the years, really. I think people feel welcome and come and join in, and it's a lovely, lovely thing. So that's Tête, the company, and that ran for 10 years doing more and more bonkers things. And I think that we've made a marvellous graph of what our income comes from. And over 20 years, it's the most insane zigzags, which has, I'm sure we'll come to, set us up very well for this horrible year of COVID, because we've been existing in a world of disaster for 20 years. And something it's taken me a very, very long time to understand is if you want to be successful in terms of get lots of money and hard all over the world and all that, you need to be rather boring. You need to do the same thing as a director again and again and again. If you just keep doing the same production, then everybody understands what they're going to get when they hire you. Unfortunately, I just always want to do the exact opposite of what I just did. And so I think I probably totally destabilized. I never really think about a career, but were I to think about a career, I think I probably demolished it by always wanting to do something different, so nobody will know what they're going to get if they hire me. Though I'm also slightly boggling at the fact that I've been doing this pretty much 35 years and I'm still here, which is a bit like, wow.
That's phenomenal. Really phenomenal, Bill.
It's ridiculous, really, isn't it? But maybe obstinacy or endurance or something. Then I'm giving you a very long answer to a very short question, but it's quite a big question. Tête, the opera festival, happened because of that zigzag to some degree. So Tête, as I've already said, started under the wing of Tom Morris at Battersea Arts Centre. It moved around under a couple more wings, the ENO studio, the English National Opera Studio, which was brilliant but has gone. It was just gone. And then the Bridewell Theatre, which was wonderful and then completely changed tack. Though weirdly it's now doing another opera festival with lots of new opera, but I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, what I felt in about 2005, 2006 was that we built a kind of infrastructure and had a certain amount of strength, so we'd be able to support other little versions of Tête. So if there were artists going, well, I really want to do this idea, but I don't know how to start or get a theatre or whatever, that we could do a lot of that for them. It also had this weird feeling that because of this zigzag of income, we had a really difficult time with the Arts Council, who just wouldn't give us any money at all, having given us a lot. So we went from a turnover of about 500,000 in 2006 to probably 1/3 of that came from everywhere except the Arts Council. So I just thought the best thing to do if you haven't got any money is or that support has gone particularly, is do a massive amount of work. So the festival was a way of doing a huge amount of work and proving the validity of the same mission, which is to get opera makers into theatres at an early stage, rather than you can't write an opera until you've done 6 proms commissions and got a knighthood, which was...
I mean, I think that's so important, Bill. I mean, like the making of new work. I find that really fundamental in terms of the whole industry, really, whether it be a singer, whether it be a composer, whether it be a pianist, you know, about how do we support people's development, not just when they're at conservatoire. Some people don't even get to conservatoire. I'm one of those people, but how do you support their career as they're walking the beginnings of it, and you know, finding their route and their voice. You know, Claire is just saying, morning, Bill and Nadine. Bill, I can't believe we have never worked together. I'm a big fan of Tête and all you do. Happy surfing. Big love to you and Nadine.
Oh, thanks, Claire. Thanks. Yeah, I think the thing that seemed so obvious to me coming to opera from theatre was the National Theatre stands on the shoulders of or the West End, the shoulders of the Royal Court and the Bush and Hampstead Theatre and who in turn stand on the shoulders of the King's Head and the Red Lion and and so there's this whole pyramidal fringe. Whereas opera 20 years ago was half a dozen enormous companies on very narrow, tall pinnacles that didn't support them or the people working in them because of what you've just said, that there was no place to find out who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite true, because I think what there used to be, which has fallen by the wayside a fair amount, is thriving amateur opera scene.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people I work with, like, I don't know, Donald Adams or somebody who's absolutely brilliant artist, or who came in that way. And in that way, I think we've lost a lot of diversity in the opera world, actually, because you can only get in now if you do. Well, it's not quite true. You're an exception, but you have to be able to do 10 years training.
Yeah.
And that is kind of, you've got to be able to afford that. And
yeah, you've got to be able to afford that. And, you know, I think one of the things that I was, you know, really fortunate at is that, you know, that I did spend every last penny that I had, but I was willing to do that. I think a lot of people wouldn't be willing to do what I did in order to get to where I got to. You know,
yeah, that's right.
You know, and I think, but I had to invest in myself, and I did get some support from people that I had, well, from one woman that I had written to, and she did support me for 3 years to choose my teachers, etc. And then, you know, even still now in this time where this has happened, this pandemic happened, and I, you know, all my work went, it just everything. And then I, you know, I had no money at all, and so I did have to ask for help from somebody that hadn't kind of mentors me, you know, and they gave me something to tide me over, and then all my friends as well. So, you know, I think it's a case of that. Well, for me, my experience is that we don't do this alone. We always have to be, you know, in that funnel of mentorship, or the funnel of supporting other artists and peers and colleagues, and that, you know, the more we are a community, that the more that we can, like you'd say, stand on the shoulders of those giants that do well for the community and serve it.
Well, and each other, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting thinking in terms of that this year, that because this year Tête did what it usually does and is supposed to do, and we did a festival, and it was because I couldn't bear all these. We nearly had a program in about February, but then COVID, and I couldn't bear the idea that all these artists would just get dumped by us as well as everybody else. I couldn't stand it. So we didn't do it. We carried on. We made it happen. I drove it through. And the energy to do that came from this feeling that we're not sustained just by food and roofs over our heads. What keeps us alive just as much is our work. And you can't take that away, and you mustn't take it away.
Yeah. I love what Claire's saying here. I came in through the amateur operatic societies and met such a diverse group of amazing creatives. It helped make me the performer I am. So grateful to those small groups. I really agree, Claire. I mean, I came in mostly via summer schools and evening classes. So that was a completely different way of looking at it. But the people that I met, the teachers that I met there, were so loving and kind and supportive that I was able to keep going in my journey and set myself goals to know where I wanted to get myself for the next time that I was there. And also they gave me the opportunity to try out roles that I would never have had the opportunity to experience if I wasn't at one of those summer schools. So yes, celebrating them.
Well, I'm just the same, you know, my line goes right the way from Auntie Marjorie's Midsummer Night's Dream at the nursery school, through lots of school drama, to what I did at university, where I started to do community drama. And then the Regional Theatre Young Director Scheme that's not like a course. They just give, at that point, stuck you in a theatre and gave them a salary and said, you've got to give him 3 productions to direct.
Wow.
And that was it.
Wow.
So
what about thinking on your feet? That's amazing.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, it was really great. It was, you were allowed to structure it however you wanted. So I had a wonderful time going, I want to understand everything. So I did one production working the wardrobe, one as a carpenter, one as a scene painter, one doing the lighting, one as an actor, actually. I was an MD, an actor in a show. Yeah. And in that way, I mean, it's gone now because the technology's changed so much, but for quite a long time, you know, you could be in a rehearsal and ask for something from the lighting, and if they couldn't do it, you could just go up a ladder and do it yourself. I wouldn't be able to do that. That's a really bad, like, it's a really annoying way to be.
Though. And I love that, you know, Jenny's just about to lead us to our next point of conversation. She says, Jenny's Ella Cook is saying, I'm an artist, composing, writing, singing, creating, and always developing. Here, Jenny, so am I. All you are saying resonates. I just can't live without creating. And that's that last line, I just can't live without creating. And then what you wish to talk about, Bill, which is getting us back on our feet. You know, I mean, can we dig a little bit deeper into that, and, you know, what you feel are some of the, you know, maybe questions or conversations we need to be having right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm kind of saying we never got off our feet. I think what... No, with tête-à-tête. I think the key thing, it's a little bit bonkers and it's a bit complicated, and it might have been an exercise for my own head, but after about a month ago, what the hell are we going to do? I just wrote a manifesto, and it said, we believe that our art is about real people in a real space, and what matters as much as what we transmit is what we receive from audiences and the whole human interaction. So we are going to build a festival of that. We don't know where it will happen yet. It might happen in the real world. It may have to happen in our imaginations. But we're not going to change into a thing where people are, it's totally about on your own online, not hearing back as you perform what you're doing. It has to begin there. And there were more nuances to that. So, you know, we wanted to make sure you could access this if you didn't have the internet, and that if we did get into the spaces we make opera, we should still let in people who couldn't get there, and vice versa, that we should be making it for people who can get there as well, just to be as inclusive as possible. And then we just got on with it. And there was something about, for my own head, and I think there was quite a lot of buy-in, that we were creating, that the process to lead to that is something you can share. I mean, that's more for a maker of a show, a composer or a director or whoever, than maybe for a singer, but not completely. You can practice it, and you can share that, and you can talk about it. some of our things were led by singers, like, I don't know, April Kyoto Odisha. She made a show, and she's everything. She's a singer, producer, director. And that was how I got Tête back on its feet. Well, not ever off its feet.
Yeah.
And a mixture of that and a lot of going and talking to people a lot led to us doing a DCMS pilot. I think partly because we were the only thing quick enough, partly because I was the only person going, it's all very well talking about enormous shows, but there are little shows and they have different needs, and you've got to understand how they work to get the sector open. The government needs to know how singing in a fringe theatre works. So we did do that, and then we did do a live festival in the gap. There was obviously going to be between the big lockdown and then students going back and schools beginning and the next spike.
Yeah.
Which I think was there for everybody to see. I don't understand why people didn't plan around that a bit more.
I know.
Because everybody tried to open everything in November when it was obviously going to be impossible.
I mean, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? That you talked about your manifesto. I mean, as a coach as well as a singer and a composer and a producer, like being all of those things means that you do have to have forward thought first.
Oh yeah.
So, and how we think is how we feel, and how we feel is how we act. So it's really interesting that you say that. Why when we start thinking about things, can we not be a bit more forward thinking about how things happen, and to be able to not cushion the way, but to take a bit more risk, I suppose.
Yes, I think what made us very strong was there was a clear goal. So it wasn't, oh, I'm stuck in my room, how can I do art? It was, at this point in the future, I'm going to get as near as I can to this thing. And then we had, I mean, the Tête Festival and artists is different to your experience, Nadine, because we bonded like never before. We were talking before we came on air about there are good things about Zoom, and there are even good things to take away from the lockdown. And one thing we will definitely take away as a company is how closely we all worked. So the artists and us, the Tête organisers, were meeting in Zooms twice a week, doing both really creative work on people's shows. I did a lot of one-on-one as well. And that was always, the question was always, what are you really dreaming of? What is the bit you can't take away? Because we'll make that and we'll get rid of the stuff that you have to get rid of that will keep your dream intact. For some people, that meant not doing a show, and that's fine. It was a creative choice. For others, it just helped everyone find that. But the other thing, which I still find magical, is we ended up kind of, just as we were sharing that creative burden with people making shows, or creative, whatever, I don't want to say burden, creative something. So challenges the company was facing could be shared. So we started having Zooms with all the festival artists about, what should we charge for the ticket price? And in fact, that was set by a librettist in the end. So it became this marvelous kind of open source management where everybody had a voice. And I think we all knew we were listened to by each other. So it was a terrible time, but also a fantastic time.
Yeah, and that's that thing, isn't it? We all have a voice. There just needs to be more spaces where they can be heard. I mean, Pendleton Holy is saying, Bill, where do you think opera is going today? Does everything need modernising? I adore new opera, but what do we do with the traditional opera?
Well, to some degree, I think stop interfering with it so much. I think an early experience I had was working with Lindsay Anderson, who's a great director who rooted me back into the Royal Court when it was at its strongest, doing Look Back in Anger and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right back into the 50s. And Lindsay, it was very much a writer's theatre. And I really bought into that. And I thought, when you do a piece, you sit down and you go, how can I best serve the writer? How can this writer's dream best be realized? And I mean, I think, I'm describing myself as some kind of unpredictable maniac early on, but actually, I think that gives you a purity when you do an old piece. So when, for example, we did Hansel and Gretel with Scottish Opera, the reason I translated it is because everybody was doing David Pountney's brilliant translation, but he translated it for his own production, which was set in a 1950s suburban childhood in England. So all the words were about, shepherd's pie and macaroni cheese, and that's nothing to do with the German at all. So I just went back into it and actually translated it and did what it said. And then we delivered the story of kind of early 19th century, because that's what they would have been thinking about at the end of the 19th century. Children in a wood in South Germany getting lost and meeting a witch who was a witch and not anything else. So what I'm really saying is, if you spend a lot of time doing new writing and trying to be true to the composers and librettists, that is what you'll do with old pieces. So I don't often feel, I mean, I've done it, but I think you only do it when you're really stuck. I think it's better to cut through the gimmickry and do them faithfully.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I mean, Everybody Can Opera, their whole ethos, well, my company, is about taking traditional opera and making it relevant today. So we did Otello, and, it is about post-traumatic stress disorder and domestic violence. So that's what we based it on, but we still told the story. So we're not coming away from what Verdi is saying or anything else, but we're just putting an eye opener, and to somebody who's being abused, somebody who's being, that post-traumatic stress disorder and what it did to those two men. So it was really interesting to see it from that point of view, and I felt that the audience members had more of a relationship with it because of that. So we weren't making the traditional opera any different, taken away from it. We were just making it relevant today,
Yes, I think they're all relevant today. I think people get a bit confused between the kind of packaging and the core of a piece, really. That sometimes it just needs to be kind of torted up a bit with gimmickry, because sometimes you watch something and you think, there are certain directors, and I think they're putting on a show with the attitude of, how are we going to get the audience through this boring rubbish? And you have a Figaro where extras are forever running around folding linen and pouring water out of cisterns, because they're not fully confident of the piece and not really just telling the story as it is.
I really agree. So Julian Pedot is saying, really enjoying your conversation for two reasons. Firstly, myself and Murray Lachlan Young crowned Bill as the second world champion of crap surfing. That's how we met in 2014. But more importantly, I chair the creative and digital task group for skills East Sussex. Oh, I live in East Sussex, Julian. We'll have to talk. And I'm interested to see how independents, freelancers, and gig economy businesses are surviving in the pandemic, and the short, medium, and long-term effects that will be felt in your industry.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
Whoa, that's a big question. I mean, one thing that happened to me as a result of the pandemic was, well, two things really. One was getting involved in We Should Not Be Removed, which was the campaign to make sure that those of us with disabilities are not left behind by the pandemic. I mean, I'm lucky in that I'm not so afflicted, I'm not so affected, but I am. But I'm working with some people who have been shielding 100% for 8 months and are unlikely to come out for a long time and need to not be forgotten as makers of the art. But the other thing that all these Zooms and kind of shouting and everything got me into, which is taking a lot of my time, and I'm very glad to be giving it, is an organisation called Freelancers Make Theatre Work, which is just a load of us freelancers, because I don't just run a company, and in fact I run it on a freelance basis, but a load of us who are freelancers who make theatre work going, and it began in June because we didn't know what the hell was going on. I felt like that with my freelance job, with the things that I'm not going to direct anymore because they don't exist. They didn't tell you anything other than, well, we're terminating your contract and we might give you a bit of money or not, and goodbye. And that's all you knew. Didn't know anything about coming back or plans. So that was a big driver of Freelancers Make Theatre Work. But since, I really recommend looking at the website. We've done some reports. So there's one called Routes to Recovery, which looks at exactly your question, Julian, and is pretty scary. It comes out with some really worrying stuff. So there's 2/3 of the theatre workforce are freelance, like we both are.
Yeah.
And that 2/3 of them, that's 200,000 people. 1/3 of those hadn't had any government support in the first 4 months of the pandemic.
And I'm one of those people too.
It's a nightmare, Nadine, isn't it? It's just, I mean, it's again partly because you need to be able to go and read the report. I mean, what we've done with Freelancers Make Theatre Work is do our very best to get support to people at the same time as campaigning for more help. But one answer, Julian, is people are just leaving the industry. I heard a heartbreaking story last week of a stage manager offered a contract to come back to work as a stage manager and having to turn it down for fear of losing the job in Tesco's. And you go, that there's something really frightening happening to us because the skills are evaporating. I think we'll come back, but I think that another thing we're really campaigning for with Freelancers Make Theatre Work is an inclusive recovery, and with We Should Not Be Removed, I mean, which has spawned the hashtag inclusive recovery, because we were already seeing to some extent, if you look at actors, it's a bit like the cabinet. It's going back to old Etonians. And, like 30 years ago, there would be your Bob Hoskins and your Alan Rickmans or whatever. And now it's gone a bit more your Benedict Cumberbatches. And it's scary. It's horrible. And I'm doing everything I can with a lot of other people to make it otherwise.
Morning, Kezia. Kezia is saying good morning. Another wonderful soprano. Phil, I really hear what you're saying, and because I know that I've been one of those ones that didn't go to conservatoire and didn't have those other opportunities that some other people had. I also want to really drive home the importance of mindset. When we put people on stages and when we put them to make shows and when we put them in solo roles or premiere their pieces, companies or even smaller companies have an element of reliance on that person to have the confidence to initiate and to make that show or that character come to fruition. Yeah. And I believe that in this time now, it is also about the same kind of thing where each artist has to give themselves permission to have the mindset to know that they can not be closed in by a boundary, but to be taken into a limitless space of imagination, faith, and creativity. I really want to bring that home because I'm just a bit concerned, okay, that there's a lot of talk about it being a disaster and things never happening and We are seeing a lot of realignment. We are seeing a lot of new and new voices coming that we would never have heard. People like yourself, Bill, who are, you know, reimagining the theatre industry instantly and providing spaces for people to talk in a way and to voice their art in a way that they've never done. We are finding artists who actually were questioning anyway whether they wanted to stay artists. And actually this gives them a great excuse to get out. You know, so, you know, like if we're honest, like, you know, like if we're totally honest.
That's also true.
Yeah.
I think the other thing it's done, and I've sort of described it with the tete-a-tete Zooms, is it doesn't have to be this hard-nosed, aggressive, violent sink or swim culture that artists can come together in a spirit of love and mutual support and come out the other end of that stronger. And I really feel like that's what happened this year. And it's a difficult thing to get artists to really feed off each other. I mean, in terms of separate companies of opera makers and things, because, you know, you're so doing your own rehearsal and getting the show on.
Yeah.
But it gave us a chance this year for everyone to really get engrossed in each other's work and give a lot of support and love. And it was, I mean, you never want it back, but it was something to take away and learn from.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about April earlier. You know, I think she's a fascinating creator. You know, quieter than most. You know, but is always able, when you put her into a situation, to be able to deliver with excellence. Yeah, but we wouldn't have seen as much of her if this didn't happen, you know, because she became very fruitful, you know, and you know, and there's companies like E&O who are having to come up with different ideas. They're doing the E&O Breathe campaign, where they are working with long-term sufferers of COVID, you know, and providing music for them, which has then given opportunities for singers to be able to provide that spiritual support to other people through song, you know. So I just think, and then people that are just like dynamos like you know, I've always found you and Graham Vick, companies like Opera Brava, companies like ETO, companies like, oh my God, they're all going to leave my head now that I want to say them. And the Tête Festival, you know, have been like linchpins in being rebels almost. You know, in a good way, because you have always been people, or you've always been people and companies that have made people question what they're seeing and who they are in relation to what they're seeing, and are always making artists question how do they want to show up in the work and what is left to be said. And also, you're also great at saying, this is not okay.
Well, yeah.
Activism that you have as well is really important, you know, and I think there's a lot to be celebrated in that.
I think also what's really important is making a context in which people can thrive and really be themselves. And you can't both make, you know, some great, very, very controlled, huge production and let people be really free with it. Well, you can actually. I did do that a couple of years ago with this Pagliacci, but it's unusual. I think if you want, you know, a wonderful inclusive company, you have to include everybody. You have to let each voice sing rather than get them all kind of forced into being something that they are not. That's really it.
Absolutely, which is what Everybody Can does as well. Jenny Ella Cook is saying, I've been writing a collection of songs, poems about childhood trauma. It's autobiographical, but oh my God, I can't speak. autobiographical. I have a vision to get other artists to perform some of the material. So I'm just focusing on writing it and developing it just now. Jenny, I celebrate you on that. I'm doing that with my show Beam, which is still in R&D, what started with Bill. So yeah, let's talk, because I'd love to see what you're doing with that. Marika Rauscher is saying those safe platforms have always been so pivotal for artists, and feel that there will be a massive boom and a revival of the arts. As discussed, it is the mindset of artists and creatives that will need to adapt to those post-COVID platforms. Absolutely, Marika. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, I mean, what Marika's saying is really probably what I should have been trying to say, given the title I gave this talk, which is that there seems to be this idea, which is really beginning to annoy me a lot, that theatre can't open until you get bang, you've got 2,000 people squashed together with another 150 performing at them, and then that is theatre. And actually, it's never going to work. You cannot turn on a tap and get 2,000 people squashed into a theatre. You have to do what I've already started and begin with these tiny things and let it grow, and let the confidence of the public and us artists, because it's too easy to put artists in scary COVID situations. You have to make everybody very safe and then build up slowly. And that's where us lunatic fringe.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Oh, he's back. There we go. Don't worry, I've lost you completely.
Oh, that's weird. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Well, that's maybe for the best.
We can hear you, but we can't see you. If you manage to change your video, let us know.
Hey.
There we go. Great. Oh my gosh, I need to get your tips in, Bill, because but just quickly, Claire is saying, I agree, Nadine, we should question everything, and activism is very important. More honesty and transparency in the arts. Please, inclusivity should mirror society. Jenny is saying, yes, would love to talk. Latroy Maud is saying, inspirational, thank you. Marika is saying, yes, correct, Bill. And Jenny is going, so tell us, Bill, what are your tips, your 3 tips for everybody?
I think we need I like being disagreed with. Everyone's been so nice in the chat. If somebody comes in and says, oh, rubbish, it should be like this, then we get a conversation. But anyway, my tips are much more personal, really, than anything. And my favourite one of my 3 is it's much too easy to get lost in yourself at the moment. And what I've tried to do, and I'm not even succeeding, is try and ring somebody up every day of Advent that I haven't talked to since lockdown. And there's plenty of people to call. And it's lovely, actually. We called each other, Nadine, didn't we, a couple of months ago? And I can't really remember why, just to do it. And just keep getting in touch with people. But also, I mean, the rule I gave myself was ringing another different person up every day of Advent, and I've already failed. So I think a sub rule is don't beat yourself up if you don't meet your targets.
And you've talked to so many people, Bill, that we heard you, so you've made somebody's day today, I promise you.
Oh, I hope so. Well, likewise as well. Number 2 is do what you do. Again, don't be cut off and thwarted. I mean, I'm very lucky now because, I've been part of the making of 20 new shows and more since lockdown. But there was a really...
alive! Creativity's alive!
Well, absolutely. But it was a very weird thing in the theatre, because every day you'd get 2 companies of people who haven't sung to an audience for 6 months. And of course, that became my normal and our normal. But it's a big deal. But I think my tip is, even if you can't have that connection, you can keep going for yourself. If you're a singer, sing. Don't let it turn into a nasty, scary thing. Sing. Keep it alive. If you're a director, dream. Conjure up those net shows. Whatever you're doing, don't shut it down. Don't let it be blocked, because it's in you there waiting to get out.
Yeah. That's what I always say, Bill. I always say that, you know, the world may be perceived to be locked down, but we are not. We are living, breathing, spiritual beings. We are not locked down. We are living. So let's create.
Yeah, and also, actually, if, again, don't beat yourself up. If you are blocking yourself for whatever reason, don't let that be a source of, you know, because it's too easy to spiral into. Number 3 is kind of that rule, really, is take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I was thinking more get enough sleep, eat well, because it's so easy just to forget that. And that's not about going on a diet or you know, doing anything really harsh, but just make sure you're getting enough rest, you're eating your vegetables, you're not overdoing it, and look after yourselves.
Yeah, 8 hours sleep a night, Bill, is scientifically proven that, you know, we do need 8 hours sleep a night. Otherwise, we lose so much of our what's the efficiency almost. You know, our brain cells just start to die, and you know, and also like too much time on social media as well can cause a lot of depression and just get nothing done. You know, including like even getting up out of bed. You know, and that kind of nutritious eating that you're talking to, like it's electric food. Eat food that supports your body. You know, plan your time, schedule a time, even if you're scheduling rest. You know, when I just, and Bill was just saying about, you know, we're not locked down. You know, even, you know, being kind to yourself and like giving yourself rest is allowing yourself to know that you're in charge. We may not be in control, but you are in charge of how you turn up every day. That's down to us. And I love what Bill was saying about connecting with people. You know, I've been saying that every day on this show. But I love his thought processes about ringing someone different. I love that. I love the Freudian slip there. So Janine Fall is just saying, savouring the tip that you like being disagreed with, Bill. Very interesting. Thanks, both. Marjorie is saying, so agree with Bill. The most creative and moving operatic experiences have been in tiny theatres with the tiny budgets, but the arts still need money and society understanding how important it is.
Oh, yeah.
Claire Pendleton Holy is saying, mustache off, but I love Bill being such a huge support to artists and creatives. We are lucky Bill is in the business. Absolutely celebrating that, Claire. Much love to you both. And Jenny Ella Cook is saying, yes, love this. Very inspiring hour with Bill and Nadine. Thank you. Bill, we're going to close down now because we've got like 2 minutes before the hour comes down.
Whoa.
I know. It's gone so quickly. You've been given so much food for thought. I love that this was the last show of the lockdown for everybody, the last safe at home. I will be back on the 14th of December to the 25th of December to do 12 days of Christmas. And it's so funny that Bill we started to go into mindset, because those 12 days will be with coaches. There will be no artists or some of them may still be artists and everything, but those 12 days will be just about raising your mindset and getting you to think and support yourself during the Christmas period, because I know that can be very difficult for some people, and about seeing how you're going to walk into 2021 with light in your heart, with joy in your heart, with abundance, and knowing that with the mindset that you can do this, that you're in charge, that no matter what you put your mind to, you can still dream, you can be the imaginator of your own life. Really, 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 really important. So let's quickly say goodbye to Bill, wherever he is. Bill?
I seem to be coming back.
Yeah, we want to quickly say, where can we find you, Bill? Where can we find you?
Well, you can look for my name on Facebook or on Twitter at BillBJ, or Instagram, or Tête. If you just Google Tête Opera, you'll get to me very quickly. And thank you very much, Nadine. It's been a really great way to start the day.
Oh, you're amazing. And we really celebrate you. You mean so much to so many people, Bill. You are fundamental in our industry at the moment. And we all want you to know that. And we thank you for unleashing creativity in such a new and inspiring way without judgment and creating a space for everyone to shine in an inclusive light. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Bill. Take care. And I'll see you on the 14th, people. Take care.
Thanks, Nadine. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.